Hello and a very good afternoon to all our viewers. Welcome to this Master Series session with our experts. Today's topic of discussion is sudden deaths, legal aspects. For this, we have with us Dr. Hemant Gangolia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Gangolia is the president of IAP, a Raigad branch, and also a pediatrician and medical legal consultant and trainer at Niral in Raigad. He's a former president of IAP Raigad branch, EB Mahayap 2019. He was also the chief organizing chairman for Mahapayam 2021 and has received the Lifetime Achievement Award for Arogyam Dhana Sampada in 2017. He's also been speaker at various CMEs and conferences, including PyCon 2015, MOSCON 2016, etc. Today, he's going to talk about sudden deaths. So, over to you, doctor.
Thank you very much. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir. It's right. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Yeah.
So today it's my pleasure to give a talk on the sudden deaths and the legal aspects. Actually, the outline of the talk will be little bit introduction, sudden deaths, legal aspects, and some related because whenever sudden death happens, it is automatically related with some violence and writing the death certificate also. So if time permits, we will go to the writing death certificate also. A little bit those who have registered for this webinar and must have gone through the description, so little bit this that was a little bit interpreted in another way. So probably these are the I'll be talking on the whatever the deaths occurring or the scenarios of the deaths, sudden deaths which occur in our practice, and then which can give rise to the problems, issues, and how to handle that legally as well as how to go practically. Most of the slides will be speaking on talking of all the practical issues which we see in the day-to-day practice. So going to our talk, the first basic thing, this is important Latin maxim of law books. One cannot say, I didn't knew the law, hence I should be excused. Ignorance of the law is not the excuse. And as medicine is vast, laws are also vast. There are too many laws, and none of them, no one can know all laws. So to classify, they are classified into two types: statutory laws and judgment laws. Whatever is passed in parliament or state assemblies are known as statutory laws, and which are example Consumer Protection Act, and the judgment law are the laws whenever any other issues occurs while practicing, which goes to the High Court or the Supreme Court, whatever the judgment is given, which is known as the force laws and precedents. Why I'm saying this? Because law syllabus doesn't cover all issues, as well as the law doesn't provide solution to all issues. Hence, many issues require the logical, justified, and appropriate ethical-based reasoning as per the standard protocols and laws of the land. Unless and until we have judgmental law, whenever such issue goes to the Supreme Court. Why I say this all? Because whatever the problems issue comes in our practice, we have to always think these 6 words. And every medical legal talk, whenever I give, I always speak of these 6 words, and probably these 6 words helps in the solving any of the problems and to weigh the pros and cons accordingly. The first word is very important: anticipation. Whatever we are doing as an OPD practice, indoor wise, emergency, what are the unexpected things occurring, complicated scenarios, we should learn to anticipate what things can happen, because that makes us mentally stable and strong to how to deal with such problems and issues occurs. Document is very important. Everybody knows this is the only thing which we can use in our self defense. Therefore, the word is justified, informed, expressed. I will not go in the detail, but whatever we document, it should be written and properly written and justifiable one. Communication is very important. Whenever in practice, the whatever we communicate has to be documented. Of course, it should be informed. And next 3 words are very important: limitation. One, as a medical practitioner, should always practice to this qualification, infrastructure, ability, and capacity wise. And ethics always follows, try to follow 4 principles of ethics. They are respect, do good, do no harm, and equality. And probably we may not be able to achieve 100%. Let us try to achieve 70 to 75%. And last important word is introspection. At the end of the day, always try to audit oneself by putting the our near and dear ones in the shoes of the patient, and let us see how one expects to get the treatment from the doctor. Probably these are the 6 words we should be very well aware, and probably apply to any situation we get the answer from that. And with these 6 words, these are the probable scenarios in practice which are related to sudden death, and these are the trigger factor for mob violence and litigations. And probably these scenarios, if we learn to anticipate and learn to do the things, then probably the things will be easier in this era of consumerism, where all so many laws are there, and also Consumer Protection Act is there, and also we are having newer NMC form law coming. These are the scenarios which are you very at clinic following injection, which is known as anaphylaxis, and when the emergency patient comes in gasping stage and dies, and when there is sudden death in a hospitalized patient. While treating the patient at the hospital setup, if the patient is brought dead at the clinic and hospital, if the table deaths are there, so these are the 6 scenarios where problems can occur, and these are the 6 scenarios when sudden death can occur. And of course, not to forget VIP syndrome, to be careful of 5 P's, and also huge billing is one of the reason for all these things. So 5 P's are very important. Probably we are having patients of politicians, press, professors, I mean teacher, police, and prosecutors, I mean lawyer. If these are related, the related to cases, probably these things has to be handled very carefully and intelligently. We will go one by one all these scenarios, and just try to learn what we can do whenever such situation happens during our practice, because this practice varies from individual clinic to small setup to private hospital to corporate hospital to government hospital. And one more thing I want to state here: when there is nothing blanket statement or nothing blanket solution which can be given to come out of all these problems. Every individual has to tailor make the things for oneself to come out from all these cases. So this first is a clinic following injection anaphylaxis, and everybody probably who is attending this webinar knows the mainstay of adrenaline is the adrenaline. And I presume that there may be consultants, there may be general practitioners, but what I want to state main points I will say about it. The mainstay of the treatment, everybody knows, is adrenaline, but it has to be easy accessible, and it has short expiry. Resuscitative measures should be available. Why? I will just go. I will explain within 1 or 2 slides. Next, at office, whoever was doing office practice or clinic practice, every clinic should have oxygen cylinder, ambu bag, laryngoscope, emergency medicine, injections. Why? I will come to that. And therefore, communication skill is very important. Most important, each drug has its adverse effect, which range from minor to very severe. And adverse drug reactions are known complication, but if diagnosed, 1 minute, just let me put the pointer. So but when they're diagnosed promptly, treated promptly as per standard protocol, which is documented, and in spite of that death occurs, it is not a negligence, more so, and therefore in the history we should always write about the drug allergy. The most important drug allergy should be mentioned in the OPD paper as well as the Indo paper. Whenever we use drug, there should be justification of the indication of the drug in the given case as per standard textbook and guidelines. Documentation of any past history of allergy should be done, and just to have a sentence whether there is a past history of drug allergy or not in general, very important. After use of the justified drug in given condition disease, the reaction can occur. But if we do early recognition and diagnosis, often the drug is removed, prompt treatment as per standard protocol, and timely appropriate intervention up to the resuscitation, documentation of the treatment is very important. If it is done, then in spite of the death, it is not a gross negligence. On the other hand, if nothing is done as stated above, then it constitutes gross negligence. Therefore, it is important to keep all the resuscitative measures and emergency medicine clinic also, because if something happens, I will just go back to this slide and just explain this thing. If the complaint is lodged, police arrives, they do panchanama and they seize the original papers, and there should be evidence of resuscitative measures because it's a known complication. And if there are no evidence of resuscitative measures, it becomes gross negligence. But if there is evidence of resuscitative measures, then it is not a gross negligence. All the unused ampules, all unused things should be kept as it is, and they, before the means we should not clear up the things and let police come and decide the thing. So this is very important. So every office practice should have the emergency. To little go in the detail about. I will not go in detail because everybody is aware. But the important point which I want to make is it is the most unwanted, unavoidable, unpredictable emergency. Every practitioner must know how to treat it, and prompt treatment can save 80% of the patient. Anaphylaxis is a type 1 classical immediate hypersensitivity reaction, and symptoms everybody knows. I may not go in the detail, but we should learn to identify skin symptoms, respiratory symptoms, cardiac symptoms, gastrointestinal, and CNS. The most important part which I want to tell is primary treatment. Make the patient lay flat with feet raised. Adrenaline should be given immediately. So adrenaline should be easy accessible, and we should always note the expiry. It should not be expired one, and can be repeated after 10 to 15 minutes until improvement. This is the mainstay of the treatment, and other things follows because these all are just they don't have any role in the immediate management, but still there it has to be given. And if after primary treatment if there is a volume replacement, the most important thing again, RL and NS to be used, no dextrose fluids to be used for the volume replacement. Of course, bronchodilators, if everybody knows, oxygen is required, and therefore at each clinic setup, these are the things should be there. Of course, easily available, because if any case of anaphylaxis or any reaction to the injection, everything happens, we should be able to have these things in our emergency kit so as to deal about it. And because basically I'm a pediatrician, but when I started in practice at rural area, probably there were no consultants over there, and I used to see the adult patient too, but for the last 10 to 15 years I've stopped. But when I was practicing adult practice also, so these were the drugs actually I have encountered in my practice. Of course, penicillin is not used nowadays, and analgin is banned. But this polybion, lignocaine, interferon, fortine, diclofenac sodium, ceftriaxone, prostadine, even local povidone iodine ointment, when used in case of the wound dressing, cause the reaction. And these are the what is the ST, NST? These are all the skin test available, no skin test available. So whenever we use the drugs, please see if there is a skin test available. We should do it and then use it. So these are the things which these all drugs have the short stories attached to it, but I because of time constraint I may not explain, but probably these are the drugs. And I can firmly say none of the patient after this anaphylaxis died if immediately properly handled. So these are the drugs. And prostadine, probably those who are in the attendees of gynec, they use prostadine in day in out during the MTP procedures. And these are the drugs which I have encountered in my practice. Other drugs which are there, almost most of the drugs have some of the form of the reaction, but to highlight, I will highlight this. Vaccine is also one of the medicine which can give rise to reaction. So, and local anesthetic reactions, and most of the antibodies they do have. If we are aware of these things, then probably we can help out the things wrong. Do not get panic. One has to keep the nerves and calm, easy access to emergency drugs, and always one can keep adrenaline filled syringe for a new day. And of course, you have to talk to the relative in a explainer manner, and whenever about the things one is doing. Immediately, please call, ask assistant to call your colleagues. Colleagues should be called in any case this anaphylactic reaction occurs, and probably this if mishap occurs, if the death occurs, please call. And now this is the tagline which always I say: ampule of adrenal in a day keep worries of anaphylaxis away. If you are having practice of injections, if you are using injections which may be in OPD as well as in the this indoor, probably adrenaline should be always emergency kit should be. This is the two pictures which have been made by our one of the allergen specialist, Dr. Vikram Patra from Navi Mumbai. This is very useful. I'm just sharing this, and this is stating the same thing of the importance of the adrenaline. Probably I will skip this. But in spite of problem is if in spite of good management and there occurs a death, what next? and it is a scenario absolutely panicky situation and probably mob violence or utter confusion. Do not get panic, but please call or ask assistant to call your colleagues at least two to three, and always keep, this is a practical tip, always keep list of phone numbers of such colleagues with the assistant, and immediately call in this the colleagues who should be ready to come and immediately to you, keep their numbers with you. And these are the options which are available whenever this mishap occurs: informing police, call your colleagues, call upon influencing persons, politician, and so-called social workers in financial settlement. Of course, this will come once again in the future discussion, further discussion. But then informing police is always the best option. And how to inform? But before informing, please document, please write all the clinical note, what injection was given, what was the mode, what was the sequence of event, what necessary measures were done. Preserve all the used empty, half empty vials, ampule syringe needles, oxygen cylinders, masks, or nasal prolongs as it is. Because when police arrives, they do the panchnama and they do all the things. So this should be kept as it is, and please document and write whatever was done in the sequence chronology of the event should be maintained, and if permits, probably write time also properly. So these things to be done. And when once police, how to inform, you can call by phone, but then of course we can do the formality of return, because acknowledge is very important. And once police comes, it takes over and does its duties. Panchanama, police takes dead body in their custody and orders PM, and no death certificate should be given. In case of sudden death, there are various definitions of sudden death, but almost it is ranging from up to 48 hours, it is said sudden death. So this is immediate one. So it is therefore no death certificate to be given in this case. Call your colleagues always, of course, helps in calming relatives, helps in police procedure, and the most important, the moral support. So always therefore the importance of the association, the local colleagues is very important. So they should be immediately called. And this one more thing can happen on question of PM. Relatives become mild and sought to avoid it by asking their certificate. But we should never give. Once police call, let them to do their duties. And sometimes police also request to give their certificate in good faith, but I beware not to give. But problem is what we are only afraid of police. This is the reason, because we don't have any rapport between us and police, and we do not, sometimes we do not follow proper protocol, and therefore we are weak in maintaining records and documents. So the most important take home message: we should learn to how to write the records, how to document. May not be in decorative. As your routine handwriting, one should know what to write in properly and as per the standard protocol. That is the important thing. And to establish rapport, I always say at many places, whenever you have an association, local association, if you have change of office bearers, please do give courtesy meeting to police station. So that develops the rapport between the police and us. And still, believe me, we do at our place, and believe me, still police does have little bit, whatever little bit respect they have, and we do find them good if we have a good rapport with them. In short, for anaphylaxis, we should be aware of the injection, whatever using, whatever drugs we are using, maybe few drugs, and we should be aware of the adverse reaction. What is the standard protocol to handle them, and we should learn to do the proper documentation. That was the first scenario, wherever the one of the whatever we are giving the medicine or the drug, and the reaction occurs, causing anaphylaxis and causing death. That was the first scenario. The second scenario, whenever the emergency patient comes in the gasping stage, and while and after coming dies. And the second is sudden death in the hospitalized patient. Patient is hospitalized, but when there is sudden death, what to do? Of course, informing police is the best option. Documentation is very important. Insist on postmortem and no death certificate to be given. One may say, whenever the emergency patient comes, and whether we can refuse. There is a one case law which is Permanent Katra versus Union case law, which states that as a doctors we do not have right to choose patient in emergency state. So at emergency state, what we have to see the patient with whatever limitation, capacity, infrastructure, and the qualification. Whatever we can stabilize a patient, give the first aid, and if stabilize, and then refer to the institution where it can be handled, or if your hospital is a tertiary care, you can continue, one can continue the treatment. So non-emergency patient we can refuse, emergency patient we cannot refuse as per the Permanent Katra versus Union law. So once emergency patient arrives, important things to realize. Of course, we are going to match the emergency patient. But what one should do to realize besides emergency, one cannot refuse the patient. Already I have said, probably try to take full name, address, assess the seriousness, counseling of the decision makers, assembly of the just anticipate assembly of the relatives. Also, we depending on the seriousness, we have to decide further course of treatment on the available infrastructure. If one has poor infrastructure not meeting the treatment, please try to stabilize, transfer appropriately in ambulance with accompanying doctor and emergency tray. If good infrastructure is there, one can continue treat as a standard protocols. And of course, we have to have the handy list of the cell numbers of the close colleagues. We should call them immediately in view of any mishaps. Now, while stabilizing or during treatment at tertiary care level, if patient dies immediately, then again whether to give DC or not. Now, if one can ascertain the cause of death, whether one can ascertain the cause of death. If not, should not give the DC. If one can ascertain the cause of death, but in sudden death, it's very difficult to ascertain the cause of the death. But if one finds that he can give the one can give the cause, the bottom line is, please, if one gives the death certificate, if court of law summons you, you should one should be able to justify the cause of death, whatever is mentioned in the certificate. If not, please don't give the death certificate. And personally, I feel in today's era of consumerism, one should never give DC but to ask for PM. So this is an emergency patient arriving, and when in such cases, informing police is the best option, takes the complete charge of the body. At the same time, to complete the documentation of the emergency treatment is provided, as many times police after their arrival do the punchline sees the original paper. But many times we as doctors try to avoid our option, and then we one should be able to justify the cause of death with appropriate reasoning in someone. And this is regarding why I would like to mention about the periphery, where in case of pediatrics, the relatives take out the dead body at their own responsibility without the DC. So sometimes the time interval between arrival of serious patient death is so short, in spite it creates chaos and panic situation. Still, one has to be remain calm, manage as per standard protocols, probably informing police, calling local colleagues the important issue, and then declare the death, but no DC to be given. Whenever the death of a patient occurs, there is a shocking to both relatives as well as doctors. Body language is very important. Hurry and worry may create doubt. Remain calm, maintain confidence, probably avoid shouting and loud orders. Research measures should be ready. Behave in a polite and dignified way, and share sorrow professionally. Don't be over emotional. Don't retaliate. Offense can't always be best defense. So always don't retaliate. Then, while treating the patient in the hospital setup, this is very important. The death occurs. Communication, counseling, documentation, communication, and counseling important on day-to-day basis. I I think so. One should be, if one can give one can keep transparency by giving xerox papers of day-to-day treatment. It will be a very helpful, but many times we are not sure of our management as we are poor in documentation. If we are good at documentation, giving the xerox papers of day-to-day treatment is one of the good option to maintain the transparency. One more thing, if patient dies in hospital, can a body held against the pending bill payment? Of course not, because there are the case law. This is a Hiranandani hospital case law, which all says, I will not go in the detail, but it says it cannot withhold the dead body against the pending bill in view of, because any judgment which is given, there is always reasoning given, and the reasoning was because we do have alternative remedy to recover the proceedings, which is the all recovering proceeding, the alternate remedy is there. But of course that alternate remedy doesn't work most of the times, and it takes years to get that recovery. So best to forget that. But of course we cannot withhold that. That is an important message to be given. Death in hospital, almost similar steps. Remember, the relatives may be watching. Ask politely to wait outside. Shift the patient to separate room. Don't try to cover up, manipulate. Explain the situation. probable cause, don't inform unnecessary details, behave in an empathetic manner, and how to inform in relatives whenever death occurs. First, complete all the documents, check for the various instruments, drugs, call, ask to stay back some of the colleagues, preferably by the team leader, and junior colleague staff should also be briefed earlier. Call all the responsible relative present, especially decision makers. Same message by all the concerned, and probably there should be no loose talk regarding this. Already we've discussed what is the next step. Inform police. Letter will be details, patient name, age, time of arrival, admission, date and time of death. Get acknowledgement from the police. Do not mention cause of death. Ask in charge to come. Take charge of body. Request for PM, and then to ascertain the cause of death. This is the third scenario where it is a table deaths. Most of the whenever the surgeries are done, table deaths can occur. The best thing in table deaths, please inform police. Documentation again is important. Whatever the sequence, probably write properly its completion, and insist on PM, no death certificate, and declare the death after police arrival. That is an important line. Always try to declare the death after police arrival, because if otherwise it can cause a panicky situation and also lot of chaos. So always do after the police arrival. Let the law do the rest of the things, but we should declare the death after the police arrival. And what are the causes? Maybe table deaths. There may be reaction to anesthetic agents, maybe topic infiltration, general anesthesia, anaphylaxis, and operative complications. Yeah, each and every surgery has its operative complication. That may be the reason of the death. Of course, PM will define what is the cause of death. When it's so, no DC, but always PM to be ordered. This is one more scenario which can occur when this cannot be termed as sudden death, but when the broad dead at a clinic and the hospital, what to do? Of course, not to give DC, do not refer. Dead patient cannot be referred. Inform police, and if there is any suspected foul play, if it is most of the question is asked if there's a known patient, can think of DC, but after careful analysis of the situation. But again, one bottom line: if you give the cause of death, please, whenever the court of law summons to you, you should be able to justify the cause of death. Why I say this? Because there is a one of the act, period of limitation act of 2 years. Whenever the incidents occur, the complainant can go to the any forum. The period is 2 years. So we should be, after 2 years, we never know what is will be there. So if we remember the things, we should be able to justify the cause of death if summoned by the court of law, which can come in a period of 2 years too. These are so in details, but then I think so we will just see. This is regarding pediatrics or the adult patient. Also, we can see whenever dead patient is brought, assess the number and quality of the person accompanying it. Of course, we have to be very calm, but one has to be very clever enough and thoughtful. And while examination, even though we know most of the time this is a dead patient, but of course, talk to the decision makers. Try to take the history from that, of at least the name of the patient, at least the name of the village, of any chronology of event we can find out from them, and then only, because we should be able, because so what happens if they know they are in hurry and they can just take away the patient, and then we don't know the which patient was brought, and when we get the call from the police, we will not be able to tell what was the patient and why, because if anything happens, the inquiry starts from the patient brought. So and if such a patient comes, always we should train our medical staff, paramedic staff that authorized police immediately, immediately. On declaration of death, three things can be happen. In adult patient, of course, they will not go away, but in children, generally, they just pick up the dead child because the lots of emotions attached, and they rush for the second opinion. But of course, we have taken the findings from them, who are the relative, and we inform the police, and there our responsibility ends there. But whether to make paper or not, no OPD paper, no inter paper to be made. Surely no inter paper, but we can just write the information, whatever we have got from them, on a simple OPD paper, mentioning the date, time of examination, and preserving work with us in anticipation of any further future litigation. because we cannot say that such patient was not brought to us. So if we should try to keep these papers, such papers with us. And while examining the dead child, always or dead patient, always assess the body language of the person on the doctor's narratives. And if they appear to be in acceptance mode, then only declare the death. Otherwise, wait for the police and then explain the person inability to give DC. But if one sees, of course, there is a need of PM, need of police intervention for future action. But suppose it gives a feeling of mob and likelihood of violence, then two things can happen. Police who are informed by staff come immediately, but probably which is a rare to happen. And then in presence of police to do the death declaration and hand over the body. But a second option is there. If there's a delay in arrival of police, this I say if there's less time looking at the aggression of the mob, initiate the treatment in form of bamboo bagging, mobilize the ambulance or any vehicle to nearby government hospital, known tertiary care hospital, get into ICU with one or two decision makers, wait for police and on arrival of them, declare their death and hand over the body to police for further course of action. Now the question arises why dead child or why dead patient was taken to the hospital under the pretension of ambu bagging when it is said that dead patient cannot be referred. The reasoning can be stated and documented with the police as statement because of a fear and anticipated violence one has done these steps. And as said ambu bagging, oxygen nothing has been done. This was done in order to buy time for police arrival and to avoid violence. A word of caution for in such case, never use injectables, never try to give IV fluids, just ambubang because the first whatever ABCD is of the diseases, airway has to be established, and therefore the establishment of airway by respiration by ambubagging is the only option one can try for that. So lesson one has to be very tactful in learn timely anticipation and to buy with time with good communication training, and the hospital staff should be trained in that. That during transit is also important issue, but we will just to the constraint of time. I will just go to the important highlights. The basics should be justified documentation transfer, informed documented communicate consent for the transfer, and of course we have to communicate with the hospital where we are going to refer. Carbon copy of transfer summary to be kept and preserved. Of course, final indoor paper should be completed, and when it should be transferred in appropriate ambulance by appropriate person with appropriate emergency drugs and emergency equipments with IV line, everything. And accompanying person should be well versed with resuscitation procedure and the resuscitation notes to be written, maybe as an attachment to the transfer summary in anticipation of any mishap on the way. And if one anticipates a death during transit, in spite of being all due precaution, then always better to police inform police that we are transferring the patient and but we have all should have all indoor papers ready. So these things can occur. And now if the death occurs in the transit, there are three options: declare, come back, inform police, and then decide our DC. Do not declare, come back, inform police, on arrival declare death, and then decide about DC. And do not declare but continue resuscitation, reach the hospital where it was referred, and then to be decided what to be done about it, to give the things and to inform the police after the doing the things. So this I will skip. Uh, this exercise, whatever we have done, is to avoid the mob violence. Hence, anticipation is very important as it prepares one mentally as well as one gives DC. Should be very clear in mind that one should be able to justify the cause of death as mentioned in the DC whenever summoned by court of law, which may be years to if negligence case is filed because of period of limitation act 2 years. These are the VIPs we already I stated to be careful of 5Ps. So we have should be very tactful, intelligent enough to handle these persons. Handing over the documents, whatever the documents are property of hospital, hand over the document within 72 hours. And police court can ask for original documents, number each and sign each page, take counter signature of PSI on each page, Xerox all pages, take acknowledgement number of pages, and then take signature on the paper stating that he has taken the charge of the body. The communication skill is very important, declaring, sharing the bad news, explaining the seriousness and prognosis, day-to-day status of serious patient, pros and cons of the treatment given. Surely, seniors have to get involved and not juniors, etc. Document is very important, very important. I narrated anaphylaxis, sudden death, table net. But mind you, even at consultant level, we get fumbled to carry out the resuscitation measures, could not write notes in order. So rehearsal is very important. We should learn and rehearse how to write. Once police involved, originals are seized. We are still poor at it, hence we are reluctant to call police at first instance. We are afraid of uncertainty. So we should learn to how to go about it. These are the important papers one has to always be related to any sudden death. OPD paper, indoor paper, and of course, if the indoor is the TPR and input output part and papers, and also nursing treatment papers, discharge paper with follow-up instructions, and these all the important six papers are there. The keyword is justification. Whatever we write on these papers, everything should be with justification. If we follow with this, probably the things will be easier. Now, what legal consequence doctor can face in case of sudden hospital death? So these are the things. Whenever I have already stated six scenarios where that sudden death can occur, and if that death occurs, what are the legal consequences can occur? It is all criminal negligence, civil, consumer, disciplinary action by medical council, and media trial, of course, violence. And if we are unfortunate, probably more than one can occur. And to just brief about this, to make us mentally prepared, just we'll go one by one. And this is the forums which are available for the complaint. Police station, FIR, no time to make papers proper. Hence, one should learn the proper documentation. Criminal, one can go to criminal courts. One can go to consumer forums. It is almost free, but Consumer Protection Act 2019 has raised all this pecuniary jurisdiction. District 1 crore, state 1 to 10, national about 10 crore. Then they can go to medical council, then they can go to National Human Rights Commission as well as civil courts. But the point is, the most important is three lines are important. In case of FIR, we do not have time, hence to learn appropriate documentation, whereas in other forums, one has time at least 1 month to reply and respond after the receipt of notice or summons with help of a good criminal lawyer and a good medical legal expert. So FIR is the only problem, so we should learn that. I will not go in the details. Negligence, everybody knows, but the only simple things doesn't do the act which was necessary while treating the patient is an act of omission. Does the act which should have been done while treating the patient is an act of omission? Negligence revolves around the all act of omission and act of commission, and this has to be proved. Duty towards patient deficiency, duty directly resulting in damages is only the negligence. These are the four criteria which has to be made by the negligence. We will skip this. And of course, this why I am mentioning IPC. There are some section which are applied in case of all sudden deaths and these things. And this is 304A, which is applied generally the negligence, medical negligence, which is causing death by negligence. And whoever causes the death of any person by doing any rash or negligent act, the punishment is up to 2 years of fine or both. And but 304 is important, is it is bailable. You one gets bail outright at a police station is a cognizable and non-compoundable. The important time, many times the police station applies IPC 304, which is non-bailable. What is doing by non-bailable? That the bail cannot be given at police station, but it has to be accused has to be produced in front of the judicial first class magistrate, and at the discretion of the judge, bail can be given or not to be given. So most of the time they apply this 304. So one, as a medical fraternity, we should always know, we should be able to say that it is a 304A to be applied. And this is one interpretation. I have put this slide because whenever sudden death occurs, where, as everybody knows and aware of the case what happened at Rajasthan, where the 302 was applied, it's the way these IPC sections are interpreted. IPC 29299 is related to culpable homicide. 301 means death of another person. What these three sections means, it is the death of a person, another person, which is a culpable homicide. But important is these four things: offense, intention, knowledge, and it is a bailable, non-bailable. 302 IP section is amounting to murder because there is an intention as well as a knowledge. Therefore, that this was wrongly applied in case of Rajasthan case, and that was removed afterwards. Whenever one does the death of another person occurs, there should be intention and knowledge. Then the 302 is applied. And then what is 304? It is not amounting murder, but it is a causing death of another person. It is a culpable homicide, but it is not murder. Why? Because there is no intention, but knowledge was there. Because the act which was involved the death of the person has a knowledge by doing this act, it can cause the death of the person. And but that is a non. So this all both is non-bailable, because where there was a knowledge in the involved that this act can do the death of the person, so it is a non-bailable. But 304A, whatever we practice as a medical profession, we never have this intention. We then never have the knowledge of that this can cause death, because everything we do in the good faith of the treatment the patient. So 304A should be, and this is a bailable offense. Bailable offense, the bail is given outright to the police station. So this interpretation all depends by the police station on the narratives which is given by the complainant, and depending on that I apply the section. But as a medical fraternity, we should be aware what sections can be applied, so we can just go against that and apply, and we can get a read petition, anything to squash that applied sections. Anyway, this is a slide which I will not go in detail, because but this is in circulation WhatsApp. So this is IPC Act of Hospital, but it is not. It is This are the all sections which are applicable to the general citizen of India. I will not go in the detail, but this why one should know, because this can be extrapolated to our medical practice, and therefore these things, whatever unlaw assembly can apply to the mob violence. Being member of unlaw assembly 143, 141 can be applied to the mob which has been gathered at a hospital. Of course, these grievous injuries can be also applied with assault on the doctors. But mind you, 353, 332 and 333 are related to the public servant application only. So this may not apply for the private hospitals. This may apply for the government hospital. 353, 332 and 333. So the ones, but these sections we should always remember, because anything happens, so we should. I will not go in the details. These are all the punishment and but one should be aware. I may share this slide if you want with the doc plexus. And two or three cases, one everybody should know in case of sudden death. Whenever something happens, this is the Martin D'Souza cause, not to not to arrest doctors, but refer to the committee of doctors. This is important. Everybody should have this copy in their smartphone. And this Jacob Matthew case, onus of negligence is on complainant. And one more important word is reasonable degree of skill and knowledge, and to stick to standard current standard protocols. One may not be 100% right, but reasonable, important word is reasonable degree of skill and knowledge, and must exercise reasonable degree of care and standard of care. That is important. And this another Suresh Gupta case is very important. Careless act is criminal only if gross inaction, gross incompetence. So main important is where the gross negligence, then only is a problem. Otherwise, there is no issue in that. This is very important thing whenever the sudden death occurs, how to face media, because facing media is an important thing. Newspaper, press people, press conference, TV, social media, and it's going on a lot. I can say there are dedicated WhatsApp group who just circulate these things, and YouTube and Facebook. All these things are there, but how to face it? Of course, there is a breaking news. Realize people have short memory. Many of them do not read, and we should not try to justify. But and do not approach any press reports to give justice. But if someone approaches, this is an issue where whenever press people approaches doctors, we somehow neglect them. We do not give importance to them, and therefore it's very important to approach them. And if they approach, please answer the question in scientific manner, and we can assort to your colleague for help. Face the problem, accept the challenge. Time is the best healer. And of course, in daily practice, I feel so. If we practice good enough, it's always easier. Nothing is. But how to face our colleagues? Most of that. But probably each and every medical fraternity should remember that we are in same boat. Hence, we should have to learn from the mistakes of others. And of course, helping each is the importance of association. So we should have an association. Of course, social media, they have freedom of speech expression. Common scenario of defamation, posts, remarks, pictures, videos, etc. goes on social media. There, and what is the solution for this? Probably there is a solution. Only one solution is defiling the defamation case. And one of the case which occurred recently at the Bangalore, they have just put the notices all the newspaper regarding that incidences, and that any you cannot publish any newspaper unless and if it is wrongly, we can be sued in the court. So that can be done. So defamation, but problem is with defamation case, one largest defamation case, time frame. Really, it is a difficult proposition, but one should go ahead if one feels it is a cause a serious problem. So we can file the defamation case, but one has to keep that patient time frame because the judgment to come takes years. Now, how to address the press? So establish the site, appoint a media license, communicate through press briefing, establish the fact there are 5 Ws and 1 H, and express emotions. And these are the generally questions what asked by the media or relative. So why I putting these questions here? Generally, these questions are asked, and if we learn and how to answer it as related to the sudden death which has occurred, what went wrong, what caused this, did you have any prior indication that there was a problem, and who made the critical decision, who was in charge at the time, how will the case be investigated, how was the negligence discovered, by whom and when, what action will be taken against those responsible, when was the family notified, what was said to them, what state and local authorities have been notified, and when, what is being done to avoid a repeat scenario, has anything like this happened before. Probably these are the questions set which of these media people ask. So if we know these questions and how to answer in the perspective of the incidents happened or the sudden death happened, we should be able to answer in a proper way. And probably whatever the scenarios I have stated, the sudden deaths occurred, and we should always learn to anticipate and be prepared to the. These are the practical things which I always feel we should design our workplace. If we should always have an emergency exit, every consultant room should have an emergency exit, because sometimes in a case of this thing, emergency exit is the best option rather than confronting. Emergency room should be well equipped, and there is always display of Doctor Protection Act in all almost most of the state have this Doctor Protection Act, but in Maharashtra it was implemented in 2010, and therefore everyone should have the copy of the Doctor Protection Act in their smartphone, and that can be displayed in the our hospital or whatever the clinic. CCTVs are must. Your audio can also be used. Of course, the privacy reason area should not be under CCTV, and of course there should be a board that you are under surveillance of CCTV. List of emergency phone number with assistant or responsible staff. Insurance, of course, insurance is important. Professional indemnity, hospital, whatever, and at least 1 crore is minimum is a requirement. We should be member of a local association. Security is an individual choice to keep bouncers or whatever the collective security in a association. Restricted entry with restricted to visiting hours, and electronic medical record uploading names, training of paramedic staff to do other things, and this is the important to trigger the alarm system for rush team. Of course, one should have always the like one rush team in the as per area. Call your colleagues immediately. Inform the police is the best option always. Involving politician is a double-edged sword. I leave it to an individual personality if they have good, because I have been involved in 3 or 4 cases where politicians really diffused all the situation, and in one case they really created a havoc and problem. So it all depends on the individual relationship with the politician. For of course, anything mishap occurs, please take the photographs before the arrival of the police, before the arrival of politician. Also, the CCTV footage should be preserved. All the medical checkup of injured person, if any mishap occurred, has to be done. Register FIR, and we have to submit all these documents to the insurance company immediately. Never compromise. And more often it is seen whenever there is a incident occurring, we do around the try to do all the things, but as the time passes, as the time goes, doctors try to compromise, and therefore the rise of litigation, rise of all the incidents occurring. We should never compromise and go ahead. Of course, it takes time, it takes lot of patience, and there's a lot of stress involved, but one has to go ahead with the things to be done. On reaction of police, sometimes police don't react, but then we have the higher authority to approach, as well as the read petition to file if they don't act to the what we have done. So these are practical hints, Roger. And definitely, one this slide is very important. Any mishap or anticipated litigation, whenever this occurred, anything, immediately discuss the issue, research the literature, what is for the thing and against, preserve the papers and appropriate documentation. Because again, I have already stated period of limitation act is 2 years. So may not, we don't know when the notice can come, so we should always preserve such papers probably properly. This I have already stated, so I will just keep this. Only this one word about financial settlement. If such thing happens, they try to get rid of the problem as soon as possible. But of course, do not give any cash or check to the patient in out of court settlement. There's a proper agreement done, which is known as consent terms in front of the court, and then only financial settlement to be done. Which cases you will involve police? Of course, I already stated. Just to reiterate once again, when one cannot give cause of death, family want to know cause of death, suspected foul play, suspected violence, threat, gathering of mob outside, high profile case death, and last 5 or 10 minutes I will just, because this medical certification of cause of death is itself a big topic, but just I want to highlight two or three things and one demo I will just explain, and just then we will close this talk. So medical cause giving death, death certificate is very important. So there are, see, one important, there are two types of forms, death certificate, F4 and F4A, and then this is just see this. This is for F4 form. This is F4A form. F4 is for hospital inpatient. F4 is for non-institutional deaths. So this is to be clear about it. I will not go in detail. You just can have this form and just go through it. What is the important? This is the important part of the death certificate, cause of death. These has two parts. Part one, part two. Part one is immediate cause. Whatever the disease, whatever the injury complication which has caused that has to come in the A. Antecedent count, whatever the causes which led, which made this death to occur, that will come here. And other significant, that is part two. So part two, other significant, that is the contributing to death but not related to the disease or condition causing it. This is very important. I have again mentioned here part one, immediate, antecedent, and underlying complaint. So these all come in part one. Part two, other condition contributing death but not related to the disease or the condition causing it. Then F4 also has manner of death, natural accident, suicide, homicide. This I will, and of course, is the main mention of the female. If a patient is female, then this is female, then death is associated with pregnancy. There is the important thing. This you can just go through the death form, and this is how form number 4, which is for hospital inpatient, looks. And this is the on reverse, all the instructions are there how to fill. Just please go in a leisure time, whenever if you have access to this certificate, just read this. More often we don't read, and all the things are explained on that. And this is form 4A, which are for the non-institutional deaths, and again the instructions are there on the behind the certificate. So this to compare form 4A, form 4A for institution, for non-institutional deaths, and only one manner of death is there in institution, it is not mentioned in, that is the difference in that. So this is again details. I will not go in the details, but name should be written. That I will come in one of the slides, so I will not go in the detail. So this is all about the instructions which are written in the back of the death certificate, and these 2 or 3 slides. Death certificate, clear, legible handwriting, no mistakes about age, sex, name should be there, and cause should be mentioned properly. I will just show one of the this example how to write that. But most important, many times we write cardiorespiratory arrest is the cause of death. It is the way and not the cause of the death. So it should not come in the death certificate as a cardiorespiratory arrest. So death certificate is to be issued free of charge, not to be withheld for pending fees payment. Only a single copy to be issued. Always maintain a carbon copy. And who can issue the death certificate? Registered medical practitioner, has been medical attendant of the disease during life, has attended the patient within past 14 days prior to death, and is satisfied as to the cause of death. This is very important, as satisfied to the cause of death. In which cases you will not give death certificate, already I have stated, but again, when treating doctor is not sure about cause, death on arrival, that is all sudden death should not be, disease should not be given, and whatever, how much ever it may be convincing or how much one can ascertain the cause of death, but in sudden death, please, this is my personal feeling, not to give death certificate, always go for PM. Intraoperative anesthesia death, injury, playing to a part, burn, poisoning, medical legal case, or possibility of someone to be blamed. So these are them. In partnership practice, one doctor should not certify the cause of death of his colleague's patient unless he too had attended the patient during the last 14 days of his life. No certificate should be issued in case of sudden death of a person who has not been examined by the doctor before his or death. So one or two illustrations, and then we will just wind up the things. This is the importance of writing accurate sequence of immediate cause, and so just I will read for you because this is not an interactive session. Otherwise, I make other the this attendee to read the case and then we see the things. So this is 59-year-old male was admitted to the hospital with shock and with signs of septicemia, along with gangrene of left foot. Patient had swelling of it, food 10 fever since 3 days, history of COPD, diabetes 5 years, patient died case of carcinoma pancreas, operated was same 5 years back, patient died 2 days after admission due to septicemic shock. So this was the cause of death which was written. And of course, one thing I forgotten to mention, interval between onset and death should be always be mentioned. So here the immediate cause is diabetes written, gangrene or red food, carcinoma of pancreas, and whether this is right or wrong. So this is a incorrect. If we were doing interactive, I would have asked, and there's no means to see the chat box. So otherwise, I could have asked to write right or wrong. But this is the incorrect cause of death. So what is the correct cause of death? So this correct cause, immediate cause will be septicemic shock. Then gangrene of lead food has led to the septicemic shock, and diabetes mellitus was the underlying condition. So these are the things to be written. And of course, carcinoma pancreas and other insignificant conditions. COPD, this is not related to death, but these are the conditions which can contribute to death, but not related to the risk of condition. One more example I will share. This is, see, one more thing here. The manner of death is mentioned natural, so we have to mention the natural death. And this one is of the injury accidental. We will not just go in detail of this, but I will just cover one of the pediatric DC. So just to 34-year-old met an accident and car injury, crushed injury, died half an hour after admission due to hemorrhagic shock and sent for body. So this is a cause immediate hemorrhagic shock, crushed injuries, thorax, victim was pedestrian dashed by car. Just I will go one more example and then just will go to the last. This I will skip. This I will skip. This I will come. 26-year-old second para delivered a male child, completed 32 weeks on 15 this date at 7:30 p.m. Baby was premature, birth weight is mentioned, had respiratory distress, hypothermic, blood stain for froth at nostrils and mouth. In spite of treatment, baby did and died on this. The diagnosis was suggestive of pulmonary hemorrhage. So what should be the cause of death and what are the interactive? I would have asked, but then just I will mention. So here the immediate cause is the pulmonary hemorrhage, internal with onset 10 hours back, and respiratory distress and hypothermia 10 hours back, and premature. And ICD code, I have not mentioned ICD code because all cause of death there are code for that, and that in this one can just go and refer to that. But it is a very yeah, but still whatever you mention this is okay, and if you not mention ICD code, it's okay. So this is the way one writes a death certificate. And probably I feel under the shadows of this all violence, fright, and loss, sudden deaths, whatever, if we have honesty, transparency, punctuality in our professional practice, we can overcome the stress of practice. And I think so. Proper documentation is recommended. We should follow standard protocols, manage the complications for standardized recommendation, keep contents of emergency kit at hand, oxygen cylinder, larynx, combo bag must in office also. In mishap, police information is the best option, and call colleagues for help. Mishaps are the part and parcel of practice. Let us accept it and face it. And I think so. Swami Vivekananda has said so many years back. This is in Marathi, which we usually give to our the guest speakers as a memento. But what it speaks, what it says in English, I will just narrate. No gadget has been developed which can predict 100% correct medical prognosis and can assure 100% medical recovery. But with experience, skills, logic, a doctor can try to find a means of treatment to avoid mishaps, but with limitations. Each and every time it may not work or will be right. Therefore, the doctor should not be treated as God, as well at the same time not to treat doctors and accused. Of course, these days we don't expect to be treated as God, but at least we don't treat as an accused. With that, I say thanks, and I end my talk here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Wonderfully presented. I think we did go across a lot of additional points as well, so which was very nice for our audience. We have received a lot of questions, so could we take those one by one?
Yes, 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 ma'am.
Okay. My first question is from Dr. Kiran, who says, if patient of COVID is brought dead, who will give the death certificate in such case?
If he is under treatment and if he's then the treating doctor can give the death certificate, no issue in that, but it has to be notified because it is a notifiable disease, and therefore the epidemic disaster act which was implemented, and these are the notifiable diseases, so one has to notify to the government authorities.
Okay, sure. My next question is from Dr. Dhruva, who says, I have a question for clarification. First point, can death certificate be issued in absence of body, for example, like drowning in sea, body not found? And the second is how to settle insurance cover in such a case in absence of death certificate and PM report.
When the patient is not seen, we cannot, how can, in absence of patient we cannot give that death certificate, that is sure. And of
Okay,
course, insurance papers, whenever the death certificate is there, then only it can be they're processed, otherwise it is very difficult.
sure. Thank you so much. Next question is from Dr. Vaishnavar Banerjee, who says, are the legal aspects different from different causes of sudden death?
I could not get you, what you said.
The question is that are the legal aspects different in different cases of sudden death?
It depends on the case scenario and the circumstances. Generally, whatever I stated, that is a generalized approach, what has to be followed and what is to be done.
Okay. The next question is it a must to mark all sudden deaths as medical legal cases? This is from Dr. Vishwanath Sharma.
Almost all.
Okay.
Because sudden deaths, when the cause of the death cannot be ascertained, these automatically go in the medical legal cases.
Okay. We have one
Because when
last.
the cause of death cannot be given, and when we invite police or we inform police and they intervene, automatically it becomes a medical legal case. And whenever one cannot give the cause of death, it becomes a medical legal case.
Okay. Sure. Thank you so much. So one last question. Um, could you highlight a discussion about death in operation theater and mob violence related to it? Because recently we've had one of our very interesting post discussions wherein a lot of doctors have said that whether there was a debate around whether a doctor should be allowed to say no to a violent patient in any such case. So I think the question is around that as well.
The one thing, what is the first question you asked regarding the deaths in the operation theater?
Operation
Of
theater.
course, we should have proper consent, proper everything. Informed consent should be there first, and everything to be at near perfect, and all the condition explain everything properly. And if due to any reason, if any death occurs on the operation table or in the operation theater, first thing is whatever the sequence or chronology of event has to be mentioned properly, as time, also time to be mentioned properly, and what intervention was done. Now the question comes whether to declare death immediately or not. So most at the most in most of times, it is better always, whenever there is a death, just to write document properly and continue whatever the ventilation or whatever the to resuscitate the respiration should be continued. Inform the police, wait for police to come. without whenever wait for them to arrive. After their arrival, only one should declare the death. That is the best option to be done, because whatever we are good at the counseling, whatever you are good at counseling, you cannot counsel and you cannot explain that, because the relatives or relatives or the decision makers were not in the operation theater. So whatever we do is the justification, whatever we counsel, they will not understand the situation, and of course they will get violent. There's no question about it. So best thing in front of police, then we explain them this thing happened, because then we have the protection or the police at our hand and our disposal. And so that time you can one can explain. But of course, in that case, one should not give the cause of death and death certificate. And the another question, what you said, I for last what you asked, I forgotten
regarding
that.
the mob violence.
No, regarding mob violence, that last statement what you made, read again.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Last
so
line.
the question is, if they could, so there was a debate whether violent patients, so with the doctors be given a right to say no to the
Suppose
patient.
now see, so if you have the history of that patient was violent, so do you mean that whenever that relatives of the patient comes for treatment again next time, so we can refuse? Is that your question?
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yes,
that your question? Of course, we are. There is, if we that if that family has a history of violent behavior in the past or the mob violence in the past, and if certain members of the relative of that patient of that the family come for the treatment, and if you know one knows that was the mention in my one of the practical hints, electronic medical record to update the
yeah,
names. So that is related to that only. So such miscreants, such family, such persons, we should can refuse them. But problem what occurs generally when we straightway say refuse, then they may get again wild on that. So what is the way out? Of course we don't want to treat that patient, so we have to go on another way, the soft spoken way. So what to how to go about it? ठीक है, examine the patient and just can tell in layman language I can talk, नहीं ये तो पेशेंट मैंने देखा है, पर मुझे इसको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है क्या है, आप ऐसा काम करिए, आप इसको दूसरी जगह दिखाइए, yeah, refer to the institution, refer to the hospital. So that finishes their job only. You have seen also and you have refused also, and don't prescribe any medicine. And just I don't understand this. What is this? And you have to go to this hospital. You just give the names or the reference hospital and just let them go. Of course, probably NMC in the draft which has been put in the circulation, the public domain. I don't remember the number, but it has one. In that one state, one clause is there. You can refuse the violent patient.
yeah.
So that is one good point of the NMC. But there are a lot of points which are not good of AMC, NMC. But that one is a good point of the draft.
Okay. Okay. So these were the questions that we had. I would like to just take a key takeaway home message for the audience who are watching us live here. Anything you would want to say, tell them?
The whatever the see number one, still I feel medical practice is a noble profession, still I feel.
Yeah.
But if we deliver it rightly, correctly, and I said in my last slide three words which is very important: honesty, transparency, and punctuality. If we try to maintain this, and of course whatever we are practicing, whatever we do practice, most of them say it is a defense practice, may not be defense practice, but a practice which is adjusted to all the scenarios and making ourselves comfortable with those six words which I stated in the front in upright in the first few slides: anticipation, communication, documentation, and this introspection, limitations, and these six words which are very important. Where one has these six words are very important. If we apply those, is better. And of course, we should not keep the egoism with us. If we don't know, please refer to the right person for the another opinion. Taking second opinion is very good, and I don't think so. Most of the time we keep egoism and we don't refer the patient, and most of the time of course there are a lot of things going on. Let them Google, because Google is at our fingertips. They may Google all the things. Let them Google everything, but whatever one understands to our best of knowledge, explain in a proper way, and just it is their way to follow or not to follow. But whatever you are explaining, one should write on the OPD paper. Suppose if you are referring any case to anyone, write it on paper. Whether it goes on, they don't go or not, that is their job. It is not our job. But if you are talking verbally and not writing on paper, that creates the problem. So whatever we do, and of course, now the question comes, many says, the busy OPD mein kaisa karne ka? So you restrict your OPD, whatever you can see, whatever you can do best, follow that, and probably do the right things. Of course, try to achieve say 60 to 70%, and try to read all the things, and whatever you can do the best, that is the thing. So I think. And of course, one most important thing, you should always have a good association. You should have one more message I want to give, because in this scenario, try to find a good criminal lawyer in your area, one good medical legal expert to in an area, which at the 11th hour or that the emergency can be contactable and can help you out. One that thing, and always try to keep the relations or the rapport with the local police station. These two or three things we should always handle. And of course, as a doctor, this is a message for doctors. As a doctors, we feel on the top of the world. But when you are out of a clinic consultation, yeah, we are as a normal human being. So one should understand the things, and we should not keep ego in talking to the politician. Even politician also sometimes they really help. And I had some of the patients, but they really help. So but this is all individual. The bottom line is, how do you communicate and how do you keep up the relations is most important. Knowledge is there, but communication and relations are more important, I think so. And this that is a way of life, and to go ahead about it.
Thank you so much. I think wonderful words spoken towards the end of it, sir. And I think understanding the entire concept of bookkeeping or just keeping records very clean, having a good communication. I think all these do make do take wonders for any profession for that matter. So, on this note, sir, I would like to close today's session. And thank you so much for joining us here, Dr. Gangulia. It has been an absolute pleasure listening to you. And also to our dear audience, thank you so much for logging in today and viewing this webinar. If you have any more questions, please feel free to share it with us. Dr. Gangulia would be, I think, happy to answer those as well. So, on this, please take care and have a great evening ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
To end the things, whatever PPT is there, I can send a PDF to you. If you want to circulate among them, it is there is no copyright on that. That can be done.
Sure. Definitely, sir. Thank you so much.
And
Have a good
thank
evening.
you for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.